everybody. Welcome to Spill. I am Alyssa Robinson, and I am joined tonight by Reverend Bill Malden. He is our new youth director here at Trietsch, and so we're really excited to have him on as a guest today. You might notice that Pastor O is not here tonight, so he is off tonight. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently and just having a conversation. We're still hitting that theme of burnout, so I'm really excited to talk to Bill about that a little bit. And just as a reminder, we are continuing to raise money over the next couple of weeks for the Center Counseling. This is a very worthy cause. They are nonprofit counseling, providing therapy to the most vulnerable in our community who maybe can't afford counseling on their own, don't have health insurance, but they deserve to have someone to talk to as well. So they are nonprofit counseling. You can go to tmumc.org/spill, and it'll give you instructions on how to donate. So hopefully at any time during this episode, you can go in and make a donation. But let's go ahead and jump right into it with Spill with Bill is what I'm calling it.
I like that.
All right, Bill. So, like I said, our spill theme this week is burnout. So how have you experienced burnout in either your faith or your relationships or your career?
Man, I think at some point, I think we've all experienced burnout in every part of our life at some point. So I think career, I definitely had a moment several years ago, kind of a low moment. Ministry can be hard, and so it's just kind of one of those moments you realize that I hadn't shown up myself the way I wanted to, and just kind of realized I wasn't bringing my best self forward, and so kind of had a moment of burnout, and actually left the job I was doing for a couple of months before I went to a new one, kind of had to do some self-care, some growth stuff, and so I've definitely experienced it in my career. Relationships, I think relationships go high and low, up and down. And so definitely experienced burnout in those. For me, I think the question is always, there's a gentleman I like his work, John Gottman, who does work around marriage and relationships. And he talks about, are you turning towards, away, or against? And so whenever I find myself not turning towards people in my relationships, I realize that can be something that's leading me to burnout, and I have to start being aware. For my faith, again, that's another relationship, and so there's highs and lows. And so there's definitely those times where we have those mountaintop experiences, but then there's also times where we've gotten away from those, and maybe things haven't quite gone as we had hoped and planned, and sometimes we end up kind of feeling, lost a little bit, and so kind of coming around. But yeah, I think I've experienced burnout in all three of those.
So you mentioned, needing to take a step away and doing some self-care. What does that look like for you?
So for me, self-care takes on a couple of things. One of those is kind of my own spiritual practices, kind of getting back. There's times where it's like anything else, where we know the healthy things to do and we're doing them really well, and then there's times where you're like, I'm doing really well, and then you start to skip a day and you get away from it, and you start to say things like, well, I'm too busy to do that. And so trying to be, I guess the word I always come back to is being more intentional about doing those things, trying to bring it back. So that's a big one for me. Another one, I've worked with spiritual directors at times to help me kind of go through those drier times and those rougher times. I've worked with a personal counselor at different times, and so seeking those to kind of help me along when I'm maybe a little more burned out. Sometimes I have to lean on somebody else to help me a little bit.
So are you pretty good at recognizing when you're burned out, or is there like a family member or loved one who's like, hey, I've noticed, you need to take a step back?
Yeah, I think my wife definitely can spot that and point that out. Like, hey, there are times that come up, you're like, hey, you really need to watch yourself. And that's a voice I have to listen to. I think I'm pretty good at starting to notice it again in myself. Just, again, there's those things of, I know how I normally respond. And when I find myself like, that's not my normal response, I start to go, okay, there's something going on there with me.
Yeah. Well, last week, Pastor O was talking a little bit about getting stuck in a routine and how getting stuck in a routine can lead to burnout in our faith, but also, you know, at work, coming home at the end of the day, turning on the TV, not, you know, taking care of yourself. So what are some of the things that you like to do to shake it up when you feel like you're getting stuck in a routine?
Okay. I think one of the first things for me when I'm feeling stuck is sometimes realizing it's a good time to stop and look around and figure out what's going on. I think a lot of times when I get stuck, it's because I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't really looking where I was going. I wasn't being thoughtful or intentional about where I was going. And so I think the first thing is to kind of stop and kind of take notice and see what's going on and kind of check, how did I get here? After that, I think for me, it's kind of like if you got stuck in mud or snow, you know, you get the car and you rock it back and forth and you kind of go back and forth a little bit till you get the energy to go back out. So I think I kind of rock back a little bit and start to think about when was things still going all right? Where did, you know, when was I feeling better? What was I going, you know, again, was I doing better in my spiritual practices? Was I keeping up with my friends more? And kind of go back to what was I doing when it was going well and have to go back to some of that. And then I think the other part is then kind of that rocking forward is saying, all right, I don't want to stay here anymore. So what do I need to start doing, learn? You know, is there a book I need to read? Is there some kind of practice I need to pick up? Is there something I need to be more intentional about? And so just kind of that, you know, going back to when it was good, but also pushing forward and just kind of rocking back and forth between those, just like getting out of the mud. I think that's how we can get out of being stuck in our personal lives.
Yeah. So you're the youth director here. Yay. And I imagine that you have a lot of experience with students who are going through burnout. So what advice would you give to kids who are feeling a little bit burned out? And maybe like what do you think is the biggest factors, you know, that are going into that burnout?
So I think the big one in a lot of my conversations, especially with high school kids, especially seniors, right, is calm down, relax. I've had conversations with young people that are just stressing out about everything. There's this idea of the need to be perfect. And I recently had a conversation with a young lady kind of about this, is kind of stressing out of, oh, there's this big test. And we kind of walked through, we played this little game, and it was, okay, what would be the worst thing that happened if you got a C on that test? And it's like, well, I'd get a B in that class. And you're like, okay, what's the worst thing that happens if you get a B in this class? Well, maybe I don't get in my first round college pick. Okay. Do you still get into a good college? Yeah. Okay. Do you probably still get a good degree? Yeah. Probably still have a... So that 1C probably isn't going to be the end of your, you know, your whole happy life doesn't hang on this one test. It'll be okay. And kind of realizing that, you know, life goes on and that everything isn't critical. I think we put that on, I think all kids, but especially high school kids, there's just so much weight put on everything they do. Like it's every test, every grade, every experience is the end all be all. And if they somehow aren't perfect, like everything's lost from that point on. And trying to just, no, it'll be okay. It'll be all right. Relax. So
what about how can parents help out with the youth? You know, they're the ones who are with them all the time. And maybe, I mean, it's possible parents, hopefully not, are adding to the pressure.
Right.
But what advice would you have for parents who have a kid who's feeling burned out?
So I think the couple of things you can do. One is you can definitely not add to it. Just like you said, if you realize that you're adding pressure, stop. The other thing to do is, I think one of the best things you can do for these kids is role model a little bit of perspective, and it'll be all right in yourself. Again, I think a lot of these kids watch their parents feel like they have to achieve everything, do everything. And so a little bit of, it'll be all right. You know, if I don't get that promotion, life goes on and I still have a good life and a happy family. And, you know, it's not the, you know, every, you know, setback or inconvenience isn't the end of the world. And so I think as adults, role modeling a healthy coping and just kind of rolling with things a little bit. I think that is the best thing we can do for our kids, is to show them we're not making everything a big, the end of the world. And so I think that's part of it. And then, not adding to that, well, you better, that you must achieve, or, I think for a lot of kids, they feel like if they somehow don't achieve this high level, that they'll, somehow they'll be less loved. And so definitely communicating that my love and affection for you is not tied up with that test score. Whether or not you make starting, on the team, I don't love you more or less whether or not you start, or whether you ride the bench, or whether you don't play at all. I think that kind of communicating is really important.
So what are some of the things that you see youth dealing with today that you didn't have to deal with when you were their age?
I think when I look at youth and even children, the thing that surprises me is how much we're trying to make them be like little adults today. You see things like kids. It amazes me. I had this conversation with somebody recently, how young that they're now telling athletes to pick a specific sport. You got to specialize in sports in late elementary school. Like if you don't pick one sport and just train on that all the time, all day, every day, you'll never make the team in high school. And, when I was a kid, ninth grade, you might go out for football for the first time and still make the team. And now they're like, well, if you didn't play in third grade, you're out. If you didn't make the team in third grade, kiss being in the high school team goodbye. We've just made children's lives and youth lives. We've made them like little adults, and the pressure we put on them, again, to achieve. But even socially, the one that gets me is the mums. For like
the homecoming moms.
The homecoming moms. Like, that's cool for like high school kids. You now see like second graders needing to get these big mums, and you're like, that's a high school kid thing. Let them wait and experience high school stuff. I've seen a third grade little girl cry and upset that she didn't have a date to the elementary homecoming dance. And you're like, that shouldn't even be in your world yet. And so that pressure of like, you should be, finding a relationship in the third grade, like that's way too much to be putting on these poor little kids. And so I think as adults, sometimes we encourage the stuff, like we're excited for them, and so we don't want to wait. And so we bring it into their lives way too young. And I think we need to really make sure that we're allowing them to have their childhood.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, we're partnering with the Center Counseling. You've mentioned that you're in counseling. So how has counseling helped you with when you're feeling stuck or feeling burnt out? Like, how is that helpful?
Okay, yeah. So the thing I really appreciate about counseling and my counselor, I love going to my counselor. It's like a highlight, man. I love that it's a trusted...
Did you want to give him a shout out?
Doug Scott. Shout out. I love Doug Scott. If anybody wants to know how to contact him, email me. I'll send you his email. But what I love is it's a trusted third person that I can go in and go, here's what I have going on. He knows me and knows my hang-ups. And so I can go in and go, here's what's going on in my head. What do you see it the way? And if he says, no, I think you need to consider this, I'm like, oh, okay, well, give me more. And so just somebody to talk to and gain. Sometimes it's just nice to vent and get it out, but then also have somebody kind of give you a little perspective. Again, a neutral but concerned third party. He goes home with his day. It doesn't end his world. So here's the advice for you. It doesn't help him any. Here's what I want you to think about, and he helps me gain awareness. That's what I really enjoy, is that he helps me gain awareness of what's going on within myself, within some relationship dynamic that's going on, and just kind of that, okay. The other thing I love with my counselor is he did academic work with clergy. And so he knows that I'm always looking for something new, some new idea or concept to add into my ministry. So it's always like personal growth work, but then we do a little bit of like professional development. And so I always enjoy that. It's part of that not getting stuck is I love going in, and he's always got a new, hey, have you heard about this? I think you'd like this book. There's always a new book or a new video he wants me to watch because he knows I'll be into it. And so that's something that helps me not get stuck, is that somebody's always, hey, I know who you are, and I think this is you, man. And I've always enjoyed what he recommends to me.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the key that really stands out to me is someone who they don't have a stake in what you're deciding or what direction you're going, so that you know whatever feedback you're getting from them is pure feedback that's not going to impact them personally. Yeah, and that's really helpful.
Self-differentiated. You know, that's the term they use for that.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't impact him. It's just him giving advice. Or really, he doesn't give his advice as much as he kind of leads me to my own awareness on it, and it's the, you know, okay. And so I really, like I said, that's what I appreciate is, you know, I leave knowing myself a little better, you know, and plus you just feel good. It kind of, you know, it's nice to talk to somebody about my favorite subject, which is me.
Yeah. Well, that's all that we have time for today. You know, Spill is only 15 minutes, but Bill is up here at the church all the time. So if you want to get to know him a little bit better, stop by. Again, all of our donations go to the Center Counseling over the next couple of weeks. You can learn more about them and how to donate at tmumc.org/spill. Pastor O will be back with us next week, and we are going to be interviewing Reverend Marcus Jones a week from today, and you're not going to want to miss it because he is the director of the Wesley Foundation out in Wichita Falls. He's a civil rights activist. He has an amazing blog called The Informed Scholar that I highly recommend you check out. So tune in again, 8 o'clock next Sunday, and we will see you there. Have a good night, everybody.